Hello friends, I trust you're well and I hope things are going well for you with the Deepening Wisdom program of the Integrated Dharma Institute. We reach a transition point now with the new moon over Bodh Gaya, where we've been through 1 month of material and we're about to engage into the second month of the 4-month course. We've been looking at the sort of prerequisites for wisdom, if you will. We've been looking at the extent to which we have to see wisdom as a natural growth that happens slowly and develops over time. We've seen the importance of right view, of getting oriented well at the beginning of our pursuit. And we've gotten a taste of some of the obstacles we face with the various obsessions and dispositions in our mind that really prevent us from seeing things clearly much of the time. And most recently, we've looked at just how capricious the mind is, how volatile, how transient, how it's constantly shifting and moving like the monkey in the trees. And now, at this point, as we go into the next module, now that the full moon is here, the new moon, we are starting to look at what insight itself looks like. We begin with Sariputta talking about his own insight into states, one by one as they occurred. The idea is that if we can clear the mind of some of its obstacles, and if we can focus it correctly to look in the right direction, and then we learn to look very carefully, and this is where the meditative skills that we've developed in the past come to bear, we can actually see what's unfolding in our experience on a moment-to-moment basis. Now, maybe we don't see at the level of acuity that Sariputta does, every little thing occurring one after another, but we do gain an ability to access the inner life and to actually see it as a flow of the mind, a flow of perceptions, a flow of feeling tones, a flow of emotional responses. And we can see for ourselves now, when we start seeing carefully and clearly what's happening, we can see that there's a place where we're getting stuck. Now we move into those teachings that talk about this relationship between feeling tone on the one hand, which is natural, pleasure and pain, but then our innate tendency to want to hold on to the things that gratify us and push away the things that disturb or threaten us. This is happening at a very minute level of scale. It's happening all the time, and it's largely invisible to us without these tools that we're developing to actually see what's happening. We can understand that there's a reflex in us to try to keep things from changing, to try to fix the things a certain way, to try to organize our experience by imposing certain patterns, certain preferences on what's happening, and how that itself turns out to be a cause of suffering. And once we get a glimpse of this, it leads us into the Four Noble Truths. But here we're going to see the Four Noble Truths in a somewhat different light. The Four Noble Truths, as I say in these discourses, I really see as referring to a sort of phenomenological insight. It's not just generally that there's suffering and there's a cause of it, but right here and now, in your own lived experience, there is something that is unsatisfactory, something that is disturbing, something that is out of balance, even if some very subtle ways. Even when things appear fine, if we look more closely, there's something a little bit off in anything that happens. And we're being invited now to see that as an event that's occurring in the moment, and see quite specifically what causes and conditions are conspiring interdependently to make that episode of suffering occur. And then in a very modest way, in a very immediate way, once we've identified what the hook is that's catching us into that suffering, we can work to unravel that hook, to disengage from it, and experience, perhaps modest and very fleeting, sense or glimpse of what it's like to let go of that thing which is causing us distress. So this notion of suffering having a cause, the cause being a desire of some sort, craving, that we have the ability to relinquish this craving and then set ourselves on a path for healthier development in the future. That's all something in the Four Noble Truths formula that we're not talking about theoretically, but very practically. This is a matter of meditative insight now, not a matter of doctrinal organization. And we're also going to, in this module, get into directing the mind to not clinging, how we can not create these conditions all the time. There are ways in which we can learn to disengage from what's happening and to liberate the mind by not clinging. It has to do with formations and constructions and how we dismantle these constructions, or how we learn how not to make them in the first place. So there's a lot of important material unfolding over the next 4 weeks, some of it quite subtle. And I really invite you to take the time in your life, however you can manage it, to just linger over these teachings. Look for the truth of them in your own experience. See if you can take the texts as a sort of series of guideposts or invitations to look more closely into your own mind, into your own life, into your own moment-to-moment experience, like Sariputta, and see if you can begin to discern how it's operating in such a way to catch us and make it troublesome, and how we can intervene skillfully in specific ways to let go again and again and again of those things that hook us, and how that points towards and can result in a much more open and sense of freedom in all that we do. That's the idea. That's what the Buddha is telling us. Let's see what we can do with this, shall we? Thanks very much.